For 7 years, children across Britain were so used to seeing the eccentric Tom Baker as the face of Doctor Who on their television sets that the thought of another actor taking over the role at the time seemed to be totally unthinkable. Not only was this new actor already a household name, he was also considerably younger than his predecessors and the complete antithesis of their personalities. Yet he would guide the programme through a period of transition into a grittier and darker, yet glossier version of Doctor Who fit for the 1980s. But with a 69 episode run spread across 3 seasons between 1982 and 1984, where's the best place to start with the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison? Are you a Doctor Who fan curious about the classic series but don't know where to start, or feel slightly overwhelmed by the whopping 695 episodes? Well, have no fear, as in this series I'll be taking you through a beginner's guide for all 8 classic Doctors, including 3 of my own personal story recommendations which in my opinion give the best representation of each Doctor and their respective eras. I'm Ruby, aka Hooby Jones, that's Petrol the Dalek, and you are watching the 5th Doctor Explained, a Peter Davison era beginner's guide. The transition between Tom Baker and Peter Davison certainly divided a lot of the fans and viewers at the time, with many boycotting the show because their beloved Tom Baker was now no longer in it. I know this because my own parents were 2 such people who did this at the time, and when I was a young child first exploring the world of classic Doctor Who, I'd ask my parents about the show, with them repeatedly telling me that Jon Pertwee was great, Tom Baker was excellent, but then Peter Davison took over and it was rubbish and everyone stopped watching. I remember then distinctly getting a copy of my first Peter Davison VHS, distinctly hiding it in a brown paper bag so as not to disappoint my mum and dad, and sneakily watching it on my own in my bedroom and being just absolutely blown away by what I was seeing. For me, the Peter Davison era acted as a much needed reset for the show, and although many of the changes of this era, including the new arrangement of the theme tune, the new title sequence and the switch over to electronic incidental music were implemented by producer John Nathan Turner during Tom Baker's final season, Peter Davison's first season was truly a fresh start for a fresh era of Doctor Who. Side note, I'm absolutely obsessed with the 1980s anyway, so the camp weirdness of this era absolutely feeds into my neurodiverse obsession of it. Throughout Peter Davison's tenure, the TARDIS became much more crowded, almost returning to that sort of family dynamic of the William Hartnell years. Peter Davison was also the first Doctor to be young enough to have actually grown up watching the show, having fond memories of both the William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton years of Doctor Who. My first story recommendation for this video features the return of the Cybermen, who were last seen in 1975 and have their finest hour in Earthshock. Earthshock sees the TARDIS landing underground in a cave where the Doctor, Tegan, Nyssa and Adric find themselves in a group of soldiers attempting to uncover the origins of a mysterious hatch guarded by 2 killer androids. It then turns out that it belongs to the Doctor's old chums, the Cybermen, who are on board a space freighter heading straight for planet Earth with disastrous consequences. For me, the genius of Earthshock is that by being spread across 2 locations, the story moves at a much faster and more interesting pace than if it was just a standard base under siege affair. The new redesign of the Cybermen is also the best they have looked in a long time, towering over the human characters in the story. The Doctor and the Cyber Leader also have some great scenes together too, pondering the importance and the supposed weakness of human emotion. Producer John Nathan Turner wished to remove a lot of the zany humour ever present in the Tom Baker era, and Earthshock is a perfect example of the show's new bleak tone, especially the ending, which I won't spoil if you haven't seen it. And like many stories of this era, the Doctor seems to have lost that feeling that he's always got a plan and he can always get his way out of absolutely anything. Davison's Doctor is so fallible and so often gets it wrong that it makes stories like Earthshock such a refreshing viewing experience. Who doesn't love a good crossover absolutely peppered to the brim with nostalgia? Well, I certainly do, and that's why my second pick for this video is the show's 20th anniversary story, The Five Doctors. I so nearly put Doctor Who's 10th anniversary story, The Three Doctors, in my video about the Jon Pertwee era, but felt that in terms of a good laugh and a good celebration of the show's history, The Five Doctors had a bit more to offer, and is a bit more of a fun watch overall. The Five Doctors sees the Doctors sent to the Death Zone on Gallifrey by an unknown enemy, where they face off against some of the Doctor's most iconic past foes like the Yeti and the Cybermen. The Doctors are also reunited with some of their old companions as they journey towards the mysterious tomb of the Time Lord Rassilon. What I love about the Five Doctors is just how unbelievably fun it is to see Jon Pertwee and Patrick Troughton back with Sarah Jane Smith and the Brigadier respectively. It's perhaps the first in those long list of TV nostalgia specials whose main goal is to make the audience fondly reminisce about the glory years, rather than just to tell a great story, which is the norm. Nowadays, I'm sure we're all sick of nostalgia bait and that sort of thing in Doctor Who, but 20 years was a big deal for a TV show at the time, so I think we can forgive the Five Doctors. As William Hartnell had sadly passed away in 1975, Richard Hurndall was brought in to play the first Doctor, which he does remarkably well, nailing that Doctor's tone and his tetchiness. Tom Baker also declined to take part in the story, so footage from his unfinished serial Shada was spliced in to make it feature all the Doctors of the time. What's really funny about these Doctor crossovers is that you'd expect multiple Doctors to get on so well and have this uber calm genius energy about them, but the reality is that the different incarnations of the Doctor hate each other, especially past Doctors looking at future Doctors. They sort of resent what they're going to become later down the line and bicker a lot, and I think that really just makes it a lot of fun. One of my only real criticisms of this era of Doctor Who is that the Peter Davison years is where the show begins to start looking really cheap. For example, a lot of the time in these stories where they're on far-flung planets on the other side of the galaxy, you can really see and feel the limitations that were in a TV studio and the cameras are locked down on the floor. And every now and then this really takes you out of the viewing experience. It doesn't help that on the whole, everything is so brightly lit in the studio that you can see every dodgy bit of set and every fake tree in extreme detail. Even in something like Earthshock, the space freighter would look so much better and be so much more atmospheric and claustrophobic if it was just a bit darker. We're in deep space, and yet the Doctor and Adric are strolling around and there's this blaring light on them. It would also be easier to believe that the Cybermen have been picking off members of the crew if they were in near darkness, but that's just a nitpick and me being overly critical. For Peter Davison's final story, Doctor Who veteran Robert Holmes gave us perhaps the darkest and grittiest story ever to be told during the show's classic run in my final pick for this story, The Caves of Androzani. In some ways it feels almost redundant talking about this story because it just is so brilliant and already so legendary, and there are so many great YouTube videos talking about why it's one of the best Doctor Who stories ever made. The Caves of Androzani sees the Doctor and the new companion Peri Brown caught up in a war over the control of a drug which has the capability of prolonging the lives of people, and this drug can only be mined on the planet of Androzani Minor. In this story we've got some of the greatest cliffhangers in classic Doctor Who, which are resolved in really clever ways. And we also have perhaps the scariest one-off character in android builder Sharaz Jek, who, fun fact, was originally going to be played by David Bowie. Whilst I'm sure Bowie would have given us a perfect iconic performance, Christopher Gable's portrayal of the character is just absolutely sublime in a story where the Doctor seems to have no power at all over the events taking place, and even has to sacrifice his own life at the end of the story to save Peri, leading to his regeneration. This is one of the most traumatic Doctor regenerations, and when I first saw it just on a YouTube compilation of all the Doctor's regenerations, you really do get this sense that he's about to die, and this time he might not make it through to the other side. From a technical point of view, The Caves of Androzani also holds up incredibly well thanks to the innovative direction of Graham Harper, who favoured more handheld single camera shots rather than the traditional tripod multicam studio setup which was more widely used throughout this era. If you want a dark, gritty sci-fi story with a great political message at its heart, then The Caves of Androzani is the story for you. And so, after 3 seasons and 1 great anniversary special, we say farewell to the 5th Doctor, Peter Davison, the man who, like his predecessors, reinvented the role and re-energised Doctor Who, this time for the 1980s and beyond. But unbeknownst to everyone working on the programme at the time, trouble was just around the corner with the next Doctor, thanks to a major shake-up at the BBC. Find out more in the next part of this series, where we'll be diving into the era of the 6th Doctor, Colin Baker. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Whoby Jones YouTube channel.